All right, what up, team? So I was originally going to do a patch note summary video, but I think that window is kind of come and gone, and there's like 8,000 videos already doing that. So I'm just going to kind of jump into my theory crafting, which is kind of my plan for the next couple of videos before 0.3 drops. I'm just going to go over some potential league starters that I've been thinking about in my head, and I'll probably do a couple theory crafting streams as well. But for the video today, I want to start with probably my number one contender for my league start, which is my Ellie Firestorm. I believe it's going to be Stormweaver. I'll have to kind of look at the different ascendancies and what my options are, but it really is going to be infusion based. So Stormweaver is probably going to be my only option. So firstly, let's look at Firestorm. If we look at it at its base level, it does look like it got about a 75% nerf, roughly ish. Its bolts got cut in half, and then the actual damage itself got cut in half. So at a base level, it's pretty bad. However, if we look at the infusions to it, it does look like the infusions make it extremely good once again. So if you have a fire infusion, it doubles in size, giving back the original radius, and then it causes it to create 3 times as many bolts. So now it's 3 bolts every 0.2 seconds. And I don't know exactly how this interacts with cold and lightning infusions, but if it is the case that cold, like just say, because it doesn't really, there's no good wording here. It just says additional cold lightning bolts respectively. So if this is just 1 bolt every 0.2 seconds, 1 bolt every 0.2 seconds. I don't know if this interacts with the cold and lightning infusion. So it would make your cold 3 bolts every 0.2 seconds, your lightning infusion 3 bolts every 2 seconds, and then your base damage 3 bolts every 0.2 seconds, right? If that's how all that works, then this is absolutely bonkers. And then we add in the +2 to limit to get 3 active firestorms at any given time. Add that in with all the on-screen effects, and it should be enough to cause our PC to explode. The caveat to this is that ignition will unfortunately require 1 of each fusion active on all the firestorms, so we essentially have to have a way to get infinite infusions, and this is where Stormweaver comes in. So if we look at the changes to Stormweaver, I hesitate to call them buffs because I don't know if they really are. We have the +1 limit to elemental skills, and this is on Rain Dancer, and they remove the 150% more cooldown for Elemental Storm. I believe that this is relatively comparable to what it is now because it did have a cooldown of 5 when I got lowered to 3. You kind of get both of these now with an additional +1 to limit, and that will be this node right here. So you have to go all the way down and pick up Tempest Caller. I don't know how good Elemental Storm is. We'll just have to kind of find out, I suppose. And then we'll skip the Force of Will one. But now we have Scouring Winds, gives us remnants you create reappear once, 3 seconds after being collected. And then Heart of the Storm now provides 50% chance when collecting an elemental infusion to gain another different elemental infusion. This will obviously be pretty good. I don't know, well, theoretically be pretty good. I shouldn't say obviously because these might just actually suck turbo dick. It's hard to say how this is going to function. And also, I'm not really kind of keen on playing the run around and pick all this bullshit up game. But I actually don't think the remnants, at least from my experience on Blood Mage, they don't seem that bad. They seem like they have a pretty large radius. So we'll have to see. But effectively, what your tree would look like is it would look like this. You go down, pick up the limit. I think you'd actually do this one last. Like, I don't know if we really give a fuck about limit. You'd want to get the 2 for infusions because these are going to be the most important. And you go down and pick this up. This is highly tentative and it's extremely dependent upon how good any of this is. My general thought process here, and it's what I learned from last league, is that if they buff a bunch of things or they buff something specific, in this case, they obviously buffed infusions and Ellie things, it's probably a good bet or a safe gamble to go that route. The problem is I don't actually know, and this could all just be fat fucking bait, if I'm being honest. This is probably more than likely what the tree will look like, because I do plan on solving end via crit plus Beacon of Aziz. Depending on how hard it is to build crit, it might be the case that we have to go Curse of Ellie and then also Elemental Exposure, in which case then maybe this would be a bit more viable. Problem is the Elemental Storm can't critically strike, so that means it wouldn't pen at all with the Beacon of Aziz setup. And then I don't know if +1 limit is worth 4 total ascendancy points, especially if we can grab something like Arcane Surge and strike twice. Again, this is tentative and we'll just kind of have to see the strength of what these nodes look like. On top of the infusion changes, we also have a buff to Trinity. It now applies to all elemental damage instead of elemental attack damage, and it grants skill speed instead of attack speed. So this will be pretty free, I think, because I plan to go all elemental damage because we're going to be focusing on Firestorm, which is our main source of damage. So we shouldn't have any issues building elemental resonance. And I'm pretty sure Trinity is actually kind of a fat buff to damage overall. In addition to Firestorm, we have a rework for Cold Snap. It is now referred to as just Snap. It can be used on any enemy that is frozen, shocked, or ignited. Theoretically, we're doing all 3. It causes an explosion of the corresponding damage type, and it creates a remnant. I assume this is an infusion remnant. I think, I don't actually know. And then on top top of this, snap can chain react as explosion between enemies that have the same element on them. So shock to shock to shock. So if you had all three of your firestorms down, it could theoretically chain between each firestorm. And I assume limited extent means that the final target is your computer and that explodes last. But actually, this probably means that there's just a limited amount of targets that it can chain on because we hate fun. I'm not sure what skill we would use for single target, but I was really looking at Fireball. I really want to use Fireball, especially like on a different build with the Shadow Flame Pact or whatever, because that looks tight as fuck. But if you look at Fireball, Fireball got giga buff, like monstrously buff. It borderline does double damage on both the explosion and the primary projectile. Now, secondary projectiles can hit the same target as the primary projectile. And then on top of that, the secondary projectiles scale to 404 to 606. They were 145 to 218. So Fireball, it looks retarded. Like this seems like it's going to deal an ass ton of damage, and all it needs to get the secondary projectiles is the infusion, which theoretically we will have a ton of infusion stuff. I don't actually know, but that'll be the goal. So yeah, I just want to use Fireball. I actually love Fireball, and this kind of, I like this build because it is almost reminiscent of a Sork from D2, right? Like Fireball Meteor, but you're using Firestorm instead of Meteor, and then Firestorm's kind of like Blizzard, but not really. I don't know, it just seems sick. So this is kind of my plan in terms of the skill usage. I'm sure there's some other comboing options on here as well. I think a lot of it will depend on what the new supports are going to be and the passives and that sort of thing. Pretty much the number one problem with this build is going to be defenses, but honestly, like I think of defenses in PoE 2 like a dude who just got caught cheating on his wife. Like, sweetheart, defensive layer, I hardly know her. Like, I don't know, we're at ranged, we have pretty good clear, nothing even fucking deals damage to shit that's ranged. Like, dude, it's build ES. Fuck it. There you go. All right, guys, that's all I have for this video. I do plan on doing quite a few more theory craft videos like this. It's really, I know it's not anything concrete and it might be bait or whatever. It's more or less just to kind of go over ideas or kind of see the things I'm thinking about. I'll be doing some theory crafting streams as well. And then, we'll see what we come up with. But until then, you guys, deuces.